The very serious problem of Gerald the Cloud. Gerald was a cloud, and he had a problem. Not the kind of problem you might expect a cloud to have, like being too fluffy or accidentally raining on someone's wedding. No, Gerald's problem was far more peculiar. He had forgotten how to be a cloud. It happened on a Tuesday, which was already suspicious because nothing important ever happens on a Tuesday. Gerald was floating along, minding his own business, doing normal cloud things like drifting aimlessly and looking vaguely like various objects depending on who was looking at him, when suddenly he thought, wait, how exactly does one cloud? And just like that, he forgot. He hung there in the sky, frozen in existential panic, while the other clouds continued their normal cloud activities around him. A nearby cumulus named Brenda floated past. "Morning, Gerald," she said cheerfully. "Lovely day for precipitation." Gerald tried to respond, but all that came out was a small, confused puff of mist. "Are you all right?" Brenda asked, slowing down. "You look a bit condensed." "Brenda," Gerald said slowly, "I need you to explain to me very carefully what we are." Brenda blinked, which was impressive considering she didn't have eyes. "We're clouds, Gerald. We've been over this." "Yes, but what does that mean? What are we actually doing up here? Why are we floating? How are we floating? Do we have a purpose? Are we even real?" Brenda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Gerald, have you been hanging around those philosophy clouds again? I told you they're a bad influence." "I'm serious, Brenda. I genuinely don't understand what's happening right now." Brenda sighed, which caused a light drizzle over a small village below. "Okay, Gerald, let's start simple. You're made of water vapor. You float because of air pressure and temperature differentials. You're here because that's how the water cycle works. Does that help?" "Not even a little bit," Gerald admitted. "Now I'm just more confused. How do I know I'm doing the water vapor thing correctly? What if I've been doing it wrong this whole time and nobody told me?" "Gerald, you've been a cloud for 300 years. "That's another thing," Gerald said, suddenly agitated, which caused him to turn slightly gray. "How do I know that? How do I know how old I am? Do we have birthdays? Have I been missing my own birthday for 3 centuries? Brenda was beginning to regret stopping to chat. "Gerald, I think you need to talk to someone about this. Someone who's not me. Maybe go see the wind." "The wind? You mean Howard?" "His name isn't Howard. Wind doesn't have names. Well, except for the hurricanes, but they're very full of themselves." "Everything has a name, Brenda. I decided his name is Howard 3 years ago, and I've been calling him that ever since." "Does he know his name is Howard?" "I've never actually spoken to him directly, so probably not." Brenda made a sound that might have been a laugh, or it might have been distant thunder. "Gerald, you're the strangest cloud I've ever met, and I once knew a cirrus who thought he was a bird." "That's actually not that weird. Birds and clouds have a lot in common. We both fly, neither of us have legs, both fundamentally misunderstood by society." "Clouds don't have a society, Gerald." "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Why don't we have a society? We should unionize. We should have meetings. We should have a newsletter." "Gerald, please go talk to the wind before you start a cloud revolution." And so Gerald set off to find Howard the Wind, which was more difficult than you might think because wind is notoriously hard to pin down for a conversation. He drifted east for a while, then remembered he didn't actually know which direction Howard usually came from, so he just sort of hovered in one spot and waited. After about an hour, a gentle breeze picked up. "Howard?" Gerald called out tentatively. "Is that you?" "Who's Howard?" a voice whispered through the air. "Are you Howard?" Gerald asked. "I don't know." "Am I? Who's asking? Are you a cloud? You look like a cloud. Actually, you look like a sheep." "No, wait, now you look like a boat. Hold still, you are very hard to identify." "I'm Gerald," Gerald said patiently. "And yes, I'm a cloud. I'm having what I believe is called an existential crisis." "Oh, one of those," the wind said, swirling around Gerald in a lazy circle. "We get a lot of those up here. Last week I had to talk down a raindrop who was convinced he was meant to be steam. It was very awkward." "I've forgotten how to be a cloud," Gerald explained. "I know that sounds ridiculous, but I genuinely don't remember what I'm supposed to be doing. Do I have responsibilities? Am I behind on anything? Should I be taking notes?" The wind was quiet for a moment, rustling thoughtfully. "That's actually not that uncommon," it finally said. "Happens to clouds all the time. You drift around for a few centuries, get into a routine, and then one day you think too hard about it, and suddenly you can't remember why you're doing any of it." "Really?" Gerald felt oddly relieved. "So I'm not broken?" "Oh, no, you're definitely broken," the wind said cheerfully, "but it's a fixable kind of broken. You just need to remember your purpose." "And what's my purpose?" "How should I know? I'm wind. My purpose is to blow things around. Very straightforward. Your purpose is probably more complicated because you're a cloud, and clouds are notoriously overdramatic." "I am not overdramatic. See? Overdramatic." The wind picked up speed, tugging gently at Gerald's edges. "Come on, let's go for a drift. Sometimes motion helps with thinking, or at least it distracts you enough that you forget you were having a crisis." And so Gerald and the wind drifted together across the sky, over forests and fields, and a small town where someone was having a yard sale that nobody was attending. "That's sad," Gerald observed, looking down at the lone person sitting beside tables of unwanted items. "Should we rain on them? Would that help?" "How would that help?" the wind asked. "I don't know. I'm just trying to be useful. Maybe they like rain." "Gerald, you can't just rain on people because you think they might like it. That's not how weather works." "How does weather work? I genuinely don't know anymore." The wind sighed, which caused leaves to scatter in the town below. "Okay, let's think about this logically. What's the last thing you remember doing confidently as a cloud?" Gerald thought hard, which made him slightly darker. I think I remember being very good at looking at things. People would point at me and say, 'Oh, look, that cloud looks like a dragon,' or 'That cloud looks like my Uncle Frank.' I was quite proud of that." "There you go," the wind said encouragingly. "You're a shape cloud. That's your thing. You make shapes." "But that seems so pointless," Gerald said. "What does it accomplish? Who cares if I look like Uncle Frank?" "The people looking at you care," the wind pointed out. "Haven't you noticed how people stop whatever they're doing to look at clouds? They lie in grass, they pause their walks, they point and smile and imagine things. You're not just a cloud, Gerald. You're a break in their day. You're a moment of wonder." Gerald considered this, But I don't try to look like things. It just happens. They're the ones deciding what I look like. Exactly. You're a collaborative art project. They bring the imagination, you bring the canvas. It's very postmodern. I don't know what postmodern means. Neither do I, the wind admitted. I heard a college student say it once, and I've been waiting for a chance to use it. They drifted in comfortable silence for a while, passing over a lake where ducks were having what appeared to be a very serious meeting. "Can I ask you something?" Gerald said eventually. "Why do you think I forgot how to be a cloud? Like, what triggered it?" The wind thought about this. Maybe you didn't forget. Maybe you just started paying attention. Most things seem confusing when you actually think about them. Like, have you ever really thought about how weird it is that birds exist? They're tiny dinosaurs with feathers that figured out how to defy gravity. That's insane. Birds are weird, Gerald agreed. So are fish. They're just sort of permanently swimming through water, which is basically like us floating through air, except wetter. Do fish ever have existential crises about being fish? Probably, the wind said, but they can't talk, so we'll never know. Actually, that raises an interesting question. How do we know we can talk? How do we know anyone can hear us? Please don't start. I'm barely handling my own crisis. I can't deal with yours, too. They drifted over a mountain range, where a group of hikers were setting up camp for the night. One of them looked up and pointed at Gerald. "Hey guys, look at that cloud," the hiker said. "Doesn't it kind of look like a worried face?" The other hikers looked up. "Oh yeah, I see it. It looks anxious, like it's having an existential crisis or something." "That's oddly specific," another hiker said. Gerald perked up slightly. "They can see I'm worried?" "Apparently," the wind said, amused. "You're very expressive for a cloud. Is that good?" "It's honest. People appreciate honest clouds." Gerald watched as the hikers continued their evening, occasionally glancing up at him. And something strange happened. He felt a little less lost, a little less confused, because even if he didn't understand exactly what he was or why he existed, at least he was being seen. At least he was part of someone's day, even in a small way. "I think I'm starting to remember," Gerald said softly. "Remember what? How to be a cloud. Or maybe I'm learning that there isn't a right way to be a cloud. Maybe I just am one, and that's enough." The wind swirled around him warmly. "Now you're getting it. You don't have to understand everything to exist. You just have to exist. The understanding part is optional." "That's very philosophical for wind." "I contain multitudes," the wind said, mysteriously. "Also, I've been blowing around for millions of years. You pick up some wisdom." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Gerald felt himself relaxing. His edges softened, his color lightened. He let himself drift without overthinking it. Let himself just be a cloud, doing cloud things, whatever those might be. "Thank you, Howard," he said to the wind. "You're welcome, Gerald. And my name still isn't Howard." "I know, but it should be. You feel like a Howard." The wind laughed, which rustled through trees and made wind chimes sing in distant gardens. "You're a very strange cloud, Gerald." "I know. I'm okay with that now." As night fell, Gerald found himself floating over a small neighborhood where families were putting their children to bed. He could see through windows, could see parents reading stories and tucking blankets and turning off lights. And he realized that this was part of his purpose too, to be here in the sky, when people looked up, to be the soft gray presence that meant nighttime was coming, that meant rest was near, that meant the day was ending and tomorrow was still waiting. He let himself spread out a bit, covering more of the sky, turning that perfect shade of evening gray that makes everything feel peaceful. Below, a child looked out their window before bed. "Mom, look at that cloud. It looks happy now." The mother looked. "You're right. It does look peaceful. Maybe it had a good day. Maybe it figured something out," the child suggested. "Maybe," the mother agreed, smiling. And Gerald smiled too, which isn't easy when you don't have a mouth, but he managed it somehow. He drifted through the night sky, no longer worried about whether he was doing it right, no longer concerned about understanding everything. He was Gerald. He was a cloud. And that was enough. Brenda floated by around midnight. "Feeling better?" "Much better. I figured out my purpose." "Oh? What is it?" "To be here, to drift, to be seen, to occasionally look like Uncle Frank." Brenda laughed, which caused a gentle rain somewhere over the ocean. "That's beautiful, Gerald. Really, I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Brenda." "Hey, do you ever wonder if—" "No," Brenda interrupted firmly. "Whatever you're about to ask, no. We're done with existential questions for today. Now we're just going to float here peacefully and be clouds." "Okay," Gerald agreed. "That sounds good." And so they floated, Gerald and Brenda and all the other clouds, drifting through the peaceful night sky. Some looked like dragons, some looked like ships, some looked like nothing in particular. And Gerald looked like a cloud who had figured something out, which is a very specific shape, but somehow everyone who saw him knew exactly what it meant. The wind, whose name definitely wasn't Howard, but probably should be, continued its gentle blow through the night, and somewhere down below, people slept peacefully under a sky full of clouds who were doing their best, even when they weren't quite sure what that meant. Which, when you think about it, is really all any of us can do, cloud or not. Sleep well, like Gerald the Cloud, now at peace with his cloudy existence.